Welcome back to another episode of Father Time with D'Amico and Blair, podcast where dads talk about balancing fatherhood, relationships, careers, and passions. I'm D'Amico, your resident first-time dad, navigating the wild waters of toddlerhood, and let me tell you, my toddler is knee-deep in teething. It's crazy.
I do not envy with that. And I'm Blair, the co-host navigating the waters of a 7-year-old whirlwind who told me today her favorite planet was Uranus because it means butt. So pray for me.
Today we are joined by a creator that I've stumbled upon over the last few years, like a few years ago. If you need a product review, he is your guy. Okay, I tell you this, he inspired me to kind of up my game as far as product is concerned. The man, the myth, the legend, Patrick Hardy, father of 4, just killing it in the game of content creating. Patrick, appreciate you joining us.
Thank you. Yeah, when you're talking about toddlers teething, like we have a 1.5-year-old, and I don't think he's teething anymore, but he's definitely turning almost 2. You know?
Oh yeah, we as parents we all understand that almost 2 conversation. Oh God, yes. Let's just hope it phases out easier for you than most people. I mean, you have 4, so you got a little experience.
Right. Our last one, it's like an 8-year difference. So I'll tell you what, if you guys are looking to have a second kid, do it quick. So try to keep them together. Try to keep them the same ages.
Awesome. My wife is not listening. Cool.
Cool.
It's kind of like riding a bike, except for the bike is you have to assemble it again and figure out, how everything works.
The riding part, but the assemble is the hard part.
Hopefully the assembly directions did not come from IKEA, because I've heard those are brutal.
Right.
But just want to jump right into the conversation, Patrick. Typically we start the episode off with having our guests give us their top 5 fictional fathers. So I want to give you the time to give us those 5.
Yeah, it's good. It's a hard question for me. My dad left when I was younger, so this kind of hits a little bit different for me. But I was thinking through it, and realized there are definitely a few. And it's kind of funny because you can answer this question a couple of different ways. You can answer it as my personal fathers in my life that have raised me through media and TV and stuff like that, or as in general, fathers for the future, or for the culture, that kind of thing. So anyway, I kind of went with a little bit of both, but number 1 for me is Don Vito Corleone. I'm a Italian man, and so The Godfather, The Godfather is definitely up there. But I think more so not later in life, but earlier when he was actually doing stuff for his family, do it for the community. Love that. Number 2 is Professor Henry Jones Sr., Indiana Jones. Love those movies. Love that guy. He's such a bumbling kind of dad, but also really cares for his son. Yeah. And I think that was one thing I really excited for me. And then Danny Tanner and the Full House. I think all of the fathers in that were huge, for our culture, but also for me as growing up, just seeing how they took care of the kids. Mm-hmm. I think that was great. And as a single father, my mom was a single mom. Yeah. So just there's a lot of correlations there. A new one, Ted Lasso. I feel like he is the father of all fathers, just the guy that really cares about his family and his son specifically, and would do anything for him. So that was another one. And then the last one was, I think it's called Daniel Hillard is his name, from Mrs. Doubtfire. And this is Robin Williams, and
we just aged ourselves.
Just a great, and again, my wife even said to me well, I didn't see him as a good father. I was like, well, that was the whole point. He was he was trying to be, and that's why he became Mrs. Doubtfire and stuff. So
that's
what's crazy? That's a solid 5.
List.
That. And kudos to your list, bro. I think your list kind of
it really covers a spectrum that I was not prepared for. I mean, as far as your starting with The Godfather, I have to admit I have not seen any of The Godfathers.
Come on, bro.
It's that list, and maybe.
All right, I'll see you guys later.
Yeah, I was like, I'm about to be out too, bro. Me and you, do the podcast together.
Maybe that can be something that we do down the road, Blair. Of a list of movies that everyone says you should see that you haven't. That's on my list of movies that I have not seen.
Oh man, I've got lots of those that you need to see.
Yeah, bro.
That was a huge thing for me. Again, an Italian family. It's like, I don't know how much you guys know about Italians, but like it's a very closed culture.
Yeah.
And so you never know, and this was true for my life too, but you never know what's going on behind the scenes. Never know what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And that's what they want. My family, we grew up, we never talked to anyone about our problems.
Yeah.
We just dealt with it and kind of moved on. I kind of, in a lot of ways, like fight against that in my own life and my family to this day. Like, it's really hard sometimes to ask for help. And now that's, I think, why I give it so much. I offer it so much is because it's really still hard for me to ask for help.
Wow.
So, and there's definitely that generosity though. Like it's kind of like it's a mixed bag. It's like, you never know what's going on with us, but we're also welcoming and inviting everyone.
The house is open, but you don't know what's going on in the house.
Exactly.
You know that you're going to come in, you're going to eat good. Blair, sit down, we're going to get you some wine, but you don't know what's going on here. And that's perfectly fine for you, baby. Go ahead and live
and that's
your life.
what they want.
Yeah. Go ahead and live your life. I didn't know a lot about you, brother. Like, I know that we follow each other. I definitely had to give you a follow because I've watched a lot of your content. You are the reason why I have a precision golf rangefinder. I got that last year, so thank you.
Very nice.
So it's like doing a deep dive on your Instagram page. It was really cool to like see and learn about you via IG. So to be able to sit down and learn about the man behind the post is insanely amazing, and I feel like we're brothers in arms already by you just coming on here. So we appreciate you for taking the time to pop up on here with us.
It's interesting you say that about my Instagram because that's my goal, is to kind of be as authentically me as possible, but be creative in that. So, that's me drinking a cup of coffee, but also at the same time, making it look cool. If that makes sense.
You make it look cool as hell. You make it look cool as
yeah.
hell. To be honest, that's the content that you create is very eye catching. And like Blair said, like I did a deep dive on your content, and I'd followed you already, but the posts that you were doing with like coffee and golf with Patrick, that was like a storytelling that I just didn't see on IG, and I was like, man, that's really cool. Like that's really great content. Like combining these two different things of like, hey, on the way to the golf course, this is what I'm doing, and kind of walking us through that. But the product photography that you're doing, especially the Stan Smiths, and shout out the Adidas Connect Matt Myers, because I don't know why he did, but he added me on to that mailing list where I saw your stuff and I was like, I'm going to reach out to this guy and say, hey, can I be on that mailing list? And the pictures that you took of those shoes, like the cow ones from Wisconsin or the ones for the Zozo Championship, inspired the content that I created around those shoes as well.
I might freestyle off this a little bit, but so with this one, I think this is kind of like a universal question that we have because it is so prevalent in our content creation with 9-to-5s, families, wives, things like that. How do you handle saying no to things, whether it's like your work, like the extra things with work, or podcasting things like this, or creating content to be a father and to be with your family, and then also to be with yourself?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny because I'm rapping about an idea and potentially going to create some posts about this specific idea, which is a lot of creative people kind of jump into something and don't really know what they're getting into. I think now that I'm 44, I'll be 44 in April. I'm old. I've got 4 kids. One thing that I've really been able to learn is what to say no to, because I realize what I say no to it's a very important thing, because when I say yes, it means that I say no to a lot of things, right? So balancing that idea of like understanding, I don't have to be at everything. I don't have to be with everyone. In fact, let me go back to even the beginning when my first kid, like you guys are probably dealing with this right now. It's like, you'll never have nothing to do, right? You'll never have a free night where there's like, man, what are we gonna do tonight? No, you have a kid,
Yep.
right? And that kid is your entertainment. And it was not like, oh man, we got to do this. It was like, dude, we have this kid, and it's awesome,
We get
right? So
this.
every time I say, exactly, I get to do this. So every time I said no to something, I knew I was going to be at home with my kid and my wife. And the same thing with the 4 kids. Like, at the end of the day, it's hard to really process what it's like not being around them because I'm around them so much. And so I think that's the thing is like knowing the value of who you are means more to your kids. Like your kids value you so much, right? And so being able to be with them as much as I could or I can helps me to say no to a lot of things.
You said something that kind of hit me, Patrick. Saying yes means you're saying no to a lot of things. And that kind of hit me. It was like, all right, you got to kind of pick and choose the moments you're saying yes, because that yes means a no to something that you may have really wanted to do or something like that. With that, I actually want to address a question or kind of a topic that we got in the comments, Blair. Friend of mine asked,
give her the ad, shout her out.
Okay,
we want to start building this up.
Yeah, all right. At NatAss23, Natalie Enda. Crazy story behind that. Like we knew each other way back when my mom married her uncle, so that was my stepdad for a hot second. Yeah, that was my stepdad for a hot second. So we were cousins for just a very brief moment in my life. So she asked how a man can meet their wife halfway when she's at 60% energy after a long day and he's at 80. What can he do once he walks in the door after both partners have had a long day? As a father of 4 and killing it with your partner, like how do you guys balance all of that? I mean, I can't even imagine 4 kids right now. That's.
I mean, the good
you're
thing
a
is
superhero
that
in your own
they
right.
somewhat helpful. I mean, they try to be. I probably like a month ago or 2 months ago, I kind of saw almost exactly what you said. There was a certain time of the day where things just got crazy, and I was finishing up work, and I just knew that my wife needed some help, and so I basically have said, hey, look, from at 5:00, whatever you guys are doing, I want you to stop and first of all, go and ask your mom, if there's anything you could do. And second, there's specific chores we wanted them to do, which is just simple stuff like, straighten up the living room, make sure the kitchen's ready to go before dinner and things like that. And so even just implementing like a regiment or a kind of a way to bring everybody back or reset everyone has been huge for us. Another thing too is like we pray a lot. We pray a lot around the dinner table, and we also talk about things that are going on in our lives. So at the end of the day, it's like we have to be communicating multiple times throughout the day. If I'm going to my wife and I'm like, hey, what's going on? I just got home, I'm hanging out with these guys because I'm an extrovert, by the way. So I get energy by hanging out with people all the time. She's an introvert, so she needs alone time. And being around 4 kids, you don't really get that very often. So if I come to her like full, like, yo, let's eat dinner, blah, 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 and don't think about her feelings, then that night's not going to be very good. So I have to think about, okay, so what, walking into a situation, kind of reading the room and realizing like, okay, kids are going crazy right now. So my problems don't really matter. So what can I do for my wife? I think that's the best way of thinking about it.
Yeah, I completely agree. So my wife, she's a teacher, and she also coaches softball, and softball season just started now. So like she just had her last day of tryouts, and she's not able to come home until like she just got through the door like 30 minutes ago. And so in order to get that time with our daughter, she's like, all right, I will put our daughter to bed. You can record your podcast. But she deals with that mom guilt of being away for that chunk of time. And we've found a decent balance as of right now of being present for our daughter while also doing the things that we need to do to kind of pay the bills. So yeah, I can only imagine that, like, I mean, she comes to the door and she's exhausted. I'm the same way when I come home from work. I'm exhausted, but as soon as I see my daughter, I'm like, all right, I've got a bunch of energy. But my wife is still exhausted because she teaches high school kids, and
Chicago high school kids.
Yeah, they are ridiculous. On the South Side, mind you. Yeah,
they're not the greatest of people. We grew up different. We grew up
good
a little
kids
different out there. Mad
good
City.
kids, but they're crazy.
They good kids in the Mad City. No, so for both of you guys, so my situation is a lot different from both of you. My child lives with her mom, and then she lives with me. So, how is it for both of you gentlemen to reset and recenter with your partner when you know that she has had so much drawn out from her?
Personally, I'm just going to jump in here because this is like a hot topic for us right now. Every Saturday, she needs a few hours just to do whatever, right? And so my goal is to get everything done so that she can have a few hours on a Saturday. And it allows her just to kind of reset herself. Like I said, she's an introverted person, so she needs, time to just be away and do her own thing. Whether it's going thrift store shopping or whatever else, that she wants to do, hanging out with herself and doing whatever. It allows her to reset. So what that means for me is that, I can't be working on a Saturday when, for all intents and purposes, like Saturdays is the best time for me to work just because I can get stuff done. So I just have to really think and plan ahead and make sure that I get everything done.
It's very similar for me, but also not. So like my daughter's she just turned 1 back in December, so she just started kind of getting mobile and doing all the cute stuff. So my wife doesn't want to be away, like doesn't want that time alone because she's like, I want to see all the cute stuff. But this weekend is actually the first weekend where I'd been invited to go check out an indoor golf facility here in Chicago. And I was like, hey, Kate, is it cool if I check that out on Sunday? And she's like, are you bringing Mayari? And she asked it in a way of like, can you bring Mayari? And I was like, okay, like, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, if you like want me to take Mayari for the weekend, like I can kind of get her out of your space, and you can recharge your battery, prepare for the upcoming softball season. But yeah, most of the time she's very much like, even when she's tired, she's like, I just don't want to miss stuff. Like she's very FOMO, and I'm that same way. Like I would much rather just be present with my wife and my daughter than miss something. Like whenever there's a golf trip, I'm like, I want to say yes, but I really don't want to say yes. I'd rather. I'm like, can they come? Like that's usually my go. But as far as like centering ourselves, like before the softball season started, anytime she'd come home, we would just play a quick video game. That was our way to kind of center and kind of be present in the moment. That's a big thing for us. But now it's just catching up on episodes of Bluey. That's what we do now.
I love it. This man has a thing with Bluey that kills me every time. It kills me.
Yo, Bluey's no joke.
Yeah, Bluey is like, my wife is like, oh, you should play it. And you know what's crazy? She said you should play it because it's on Xbox. They have a Bluey video game on Xbox Game Pass. Okay. I was like, I'm done. And this is solely based off of D'Amico bringing Bluey into my life.
I saw that.
What is your favorite Ted Lasso quote? I just want to, because I don't have one, but I watch the show a lot.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot.
And I know he has some heaters.
I'm blanking on every one of them right now, but the goldfish one is the one that I keep going back to. I mean, I've gone with that. Okay. I've known that forever, but like when he said it, it just brought it back up into my everyday memory. That's it.
Yeah. Recall.
Exactly.
The recall.
Yeah.
Yeah. So mine is the scene in Ted Lasso where he's like, Jamie, you got to play it up. You got to act. I want the ball. Give me the ball. I want the ball. I always think about that as like, play the role that you were given in life in general, right? And to me, that it means a lot more when you see it like that. It's like, athletes have to play roles every single day in their lives. We go to work And although we create and we have this podcast and you have, what you're doing and people seek to you for I guess their true north as a content creator or as somebody that they follow because they enjoy, we got to play a role in the role that we play in our children's lives, our wives' lives, the role that we were playing in each other's lives, building this community with other fathers is very important. So like, go all out and win the Oscar in the role that you have as a father, and in general. So, damn, I think I just gave like a little dad gem right there. That might have been a dad gem.
That's a dad gem right there.
What kind of got you into wanting to create the golf and coffee series, besides just needing coffee before the round? Like, what was it?
I think it's it's just kind of a reflection of my whole Instagram life, which is just my life, right? So it's just things that I loved, and I literally say that in every episode. It's like this coffee and golf is two things that I love, put them together. And the funny thing is, I actually found out a lot of people don't drink coffee before golf, which because they don't want to be jittery and whatever. But I'm like, I couldn't live without coffee.
The poops, my dude. But
I've heard of that with burritos.
I don't care.
That's breakfast burritos. I heard was terrible for.
Yes. So, and it's so bad because the one good golf course here in Eugene that I like to go to is by a Starbucks and a Burrito Boy. And if you're in Eugene, you know. So, yeah, like I usually get like a venti cold brew before I hit the course because I don't have like a small coffee house. At least I haven't searched for one.
In Eugene?
Yeah,
Oregon?
well, there's a bunch of them here. I haven't searched for them. That's what I was saying.
I felt a recommendation coming.
I can hook you up.
There it is.
Let's go.
But over there, isn't that that's Dutch Bros town too?
Damn,
Eugene.
you do know.
Oh yeah, my buddies.
Oh damn.
One of them, at least 3 of them own Starbucks. I didn't say Starbucks. That was
Dutch Bros, buddy.
That can't happen. Take that out of my mouth.
I got something
out of my mouth.
I got it.
Dutch Bros is a huge thing up there.
It is. Dutch Bros.
I hung out. I lived in Redding, California for a long time, and a lot of those people went to upper like Grants Pass, Eugene, and all those places to start up shops. So
you grew up in Cincinnati, right?
Cincinnati, Ohio. Yep.
For sure. Are you a OSU fan or are you a Bearcats fan?
Very quick shake of the no.
No, actually, it's funny because I stopped caring about sports when I was in high school because I played music and went to church and did the whole, didn't care about anything else but those two things. As of late, I actually helped out with a podcast with my buddies he was at the Chargers. Now he's on the Chiefs. But at that time, I started to really get into football again, but hadn't since then. And I'm not really into college as much. I did like the story of Michigan this year, the Wolverines, which is funny because I'm from Cincinnati and can't really like Michigan, but I do. I always liked the colors. I liked the team. I actually liked it back in high school when it was, the Fab Four and all those guys. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And the Wolverines were right there, too. They had some amazing players. Crazy, crazy stuff. Yeah. But the funny thing is, like, that coach is now the coach of the Chargers. And I was at church the other day, walking into the lobby, and all of a sudden, like, he's just standing there. And I'm like, what's up, man? Because my buddy used to be on the Chargers. And
Jim Harbaugh was at your church last Sunday?
He was, not last Sunday, but a few Sundays ago, yeah.
That's wild. Okay.
I think he's just visiting here, but he's moving apparently.
You kind of touched on it, Patrick, talking about music and faith. Like I said, doing a deep dive on your Instagram. I went to your very first post, and then I scrolled up and kept moving up. I did see that you played the guitar. Do you still? Is that still something that you do? Just curious.
Yeah, I do. It's not as much anymore. Just another thing that takes time. I've kind of replaced that with photography and more so family. The cool thing is like when I pull it out and we're all singing together like as a family, that's when I like to do it. My son loves guitar, so bringing it out sometimes just gets him excited. So a little too excited sometimes. So, tell him, hey, don't touch it.
what is that one thing that you like to? What is that one thing that you like to do with your children that you did, when you were a child, or like faith based, or
Yeah, I mean, that's key is like, I mean, I don't care if I scare anybody off, to be honest. And that's I've kind of realized that over the years. I mean, probably 3, 5 years ago, I started to like look and go, you know what? I don't care. Like, if people get it,
yeah,
confused or distracted about, what I believe or who I am, then that's the problem, right? I want them to know who I am. Like, I tell my kids all the time, I'm like, you know, if you want people to like you, just be you, right? And so don't try to conform to any one person or group of people. I feel like I honestly feel like a lot of people kind of pushed me out because they realized what I was all about, or what I wasn't about, I should say.
yeah,
Um,
there you go.
and that's, it is what it is. It's their life and it's my life. And I'm not, again, back to saying yes and saying no to things. It's like, I could start to change who I am and be compromising in my integrity, which would be awful because guess what? In like 3 years, those people probably won't exist in my life, but I still will, and my family will. So I think at the end of the day, it's like, you do you. And again, back to my family, my kids, like that's exactly what I tell them. Like, you have to at the end of the day, like you have to go home and look in the mirror and see a person that exists only to you. So you can't, I mean, I'm talking to my daughter specifically right now, but you can wear whatever you want. You could dress however you want. You can, whatever. But at the end of the day, you're going to come home, you're going to look in the mirror and see yourself. And you have to ask yourself, is this somebody I want to be? I want to present? I want to show people? Or do I need to fix some things? And ultimately, it doesn't come down to what you wear. It comes down to who you are. And I think that's the key of how do I keep everything kind of at the forefront, is because I'm not confused about who I am, right? I'm not asking myself like, man, who do I want to be today? No, I'm like, I know who I am. I know, my wife and I, we've fought through a lot. We've got through a lot. And this podcast is not long enough to go through all that, but someday we will sit down and have a cup of coffee and talk. But we've been through a lot, and we could never be where we are today without our faith in God and our relationship with each other. And I want my kids to see that. I want, like I said, we sit around the Christmas table, the dinner table, and we pray, and we ask each other, "How are you guys doing?" I shared last night even a verse. I don't know if you guys have heard of utmost.org, the great resource. It's just a simple, it's like a verse and then like a thought on that verse every day. And it's a guy, from a long time ago that wrote it all. I forget his name off the top of my head right now, but just a great reminder, right, of some of the things that can help us refocus our life. And yesterday was talking about the verse is about a guy who was healed by Jesus, and there was in the verse, it's basically the guy's yelling in a crowd of 100,000 people, and his friends are like, just stop making a scene, stop making a scene. He's like, no, like that's Jesus, he's gonna heal me, right? And ultimately what happened was Jesus healed him. He asked him, Jesus came to him and said, hey, what do you want from me? And he said, I want to see. I want to be able to see. And so the end of that story was that because of his disturbance, Jesus saw him, right? And came to him. So it's like what the whole point of the verse was saying was like, if you don't, make a disturbance, if you don't fight for what you want, then you're not going to get what you want, right?
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, it doesn't matter who's saying what. Our friends can be like, bro, you're just stop with the Jesus thing. Like you're pushing everybody away. I'm like, I don't care. Like at the end of the day, I know who I am, and a follower is a follower, but a friend is much more than that, right? And family and relationships. So, and goes down to kids too, right? Because what we're trying to do is build a legacy, right? We're not trying to build following.
Straight up.
I want my kids.
Yeah.
I want my kids to know not only who I am, but also what I stand for. And there's been times where like I've wrestled with it in my head. It's kind of like that goldfish mentality of like, you know what? I just need to forget that thing, whatever it was, because it's bothering me so much that at the end of the day, I just have to be me. And so
Mhm.
it's funny because like I don't know how much you guys create, but as a person who creates a lot, like I just kind of stopped because I was like, I don't even want to post anything because it's not real right now. It's not meaning anything to me. And ultimately it's just to get likes or views or whatever. And
Yeah.
so had to step back and say, look, like what do I really want to do? And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go back to like Instagram. Like just as much as I can, I want to make it, I'll do the things, the unboxings and all that stuff that people want me to do because I'm getting sent stuff and all that. But the other stuff of just like me being me, me with my family, me hanging out, like I want to just post those things because that's exactly what I want people to see. I don't want to hide who I am. I want to show
Sure.
who I am.
Yeah, that's huge, and you kind of touched on a few different things that really was the reason why Blair and I started the podcast.
Mm.
You'd mentioned like legacy, and that's kind of how I view the podcast. Is this is my little time capsule, so when
Mm.
my daughter does grow up, she can kind of see the man that her dad was in the time that she has no memory of.
Mm-hmm.
And if, like you had mentioned, like that's you want your kids to see who you are, and you want your kids to be who they are. And it's not about the likes or the follows. It's about just being authentically you and what's true to yourself. And that's all this. That's all I've wanted this podcast to be. And you'd ask like, what if we create often? Like I don't. That's what the podcast is for. Is like this is what we're creating
Mm.
because I couldn't find a way to be authentically myself on Instagram because you do get caught up in that. How many likes am I getting? How many comments? Or why aren't people sharing? And I'm like, no, I just want to have a conversation with not like-minded people, but like-hearted people.
There you go.
Yeah.
I want to talk to people that are genuine and are not ashamed of who they are and who they are trying to be.
Yeah.
And so I'm so thankful that like, you've kind of touched on a topic that you're like, I'm unapologetically me, and this is the content that I post.
Yeah.
I'm not going to turn down a part of me to fit whatever you're trying to push.
And there's a hard thing too, is like what you'll learn by making that decision. If there's anybody out there listening to this, you'll find that people will walk away, and you have to be okay with that. Like again, back to who you are, so you don't have to worry about when somebody says, this person doesn't know what he's doing or whatever. It's like, no, I know what I'm doing. You just don't like it. So see ya.
Yeah,
it's not meant for you.
If somebody is to walk out of your life because the positive, you are making a change in your life that you feel is positive. And if people around you are leaving or tempting you in ways, that is nothing but the devil. Excuse me, it's not the devil. That's God testing if the blessings that he's about to send to you, if you are ready for. Because that's like what it is. Like, I'm a piggyback off both of you. I was like, I stopped doing the initial Cousins Let's Talk About It podcast because I felt unfulfilled, because I only looked to create in order to get. When I started What's Happening with Winnie, I was like, I want people to send me stuff. I want to be able to go to golf courses and play there for free and feel like I've like made it. And it was like, what have you done to be celebrated or to feel like you made it? This is your first episode. Why are you talking like this? So I was like with this, and in between that time, I've taken a step back and like realized, be grateful for the person that you are and those steps that it's taken to get there. And the things that are meant for you are meant for you. Like the thief of joy is comparison. And this thing is legit the worst and greatest thing of all time because it has helped me create. And I found you, Patrick, and D'Amico, and a litany of people that I truly, truly can consider like close homeboys or friends in certain senses. And my heart is your heart. But it also can be the worst place for somebody who has a frail mind or has a frail ego or heart or doesn't know who they are completely, because you are going to visually look for more negative things on that platform than positive because it's shown to you. They throw negative at you all day. And you get like one positive video. Out of 95 scrolls, you get 7 videos that are like a puppy or somebody being a great father. Or like, so it's so weird that this thing has created and destroyed. I feel like it's the closest thing to, that's the biggest evil that we have. But it's people like us who can create great content, meaningful content. And like D'Amico said, this is my daughter's legacy. Like Honor Club Media is going to be, I mean, it's named after my kid. My daughter's middle name is Honor. So Honor Club Media is hers. Like, if you want to do it, cool. If not, it's here. Let's develop it. My son or daughter that I have, and my wife, same exact thing. Like, this is all for you. I want you guys to be able to look back at Dad at a moment where I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew who I wanted to do it for and with, and we accomplished something.
Yeah. And I think that's what you said earlier about like just wanting to get stuff and all that, and get free stuff and whatnot.
Yeah.
I went through that phase where I didn't ever say like, oh man, I just want to get free stuff. But what I did say was and I just stand by this, is like I always wanted to help people, whether that was small brands or big brands or whatever it was. Like I never said, hey, I have a lot of money and I want to buy stuff. I have friends like that literally will support and buy, everything from their friends, and that's great. But I don't have that. I have 4 kids and I live in Irvine, so
I was like,
you know what I'm saying?
So I live in Irvine,
right? And so the fact of it is like I've never set out to say like I want to support my friends in a financial way, because I can't. So I said I have a camera. I have an attitude of I want to support and help, and if they don't want to supply me with some stuff, then that's fine. But I'm here. That was always my my heart was like, I'm here to help. And so a lot of people did take me up on that, and that's where I've got a garage full of stuff that probably is more than most people need for golf, but I have a lot of stuff now, and I've been able to hopefully help a lot of people. Now, taking it to the next level, and we talked about podcasts and all that stuff. I'm thinking about starting a podcast of my own about how I can help people in the creative world have conversations with creative people that are kind of struggling and dealing with things. I've actually talked about this a long time, where that locally I just want to sit down with a couple of people and like make sure everybody's good, because in the creative world it can be tough, especially young creatives who are just getting into it, don't know what's right and what's wrong, and what to say yes to and what to say no to, because I've got stories.
It all comes at you so fast when
podcast
people
can.
Yeah, I was like, first of all, do it, because I feel like it could be beneficial. But a lot of people take advantage when they feel like they can, like when they see a kind heart or a good soul that they know that they can manipulate. It's evil of them, but it's something that they can do. So a lot of babies in this industry, and I like babies as young people, but if you're just getting into this space and you want to do something, you are considered a baby in this space, in this content creation space. So you do need a little guidance. You do need a little help. And I want to go back to what you were saying. It's like how you say you wanted to help your friends when you were saying, like, I don't want to get free stuff. Like, I think that's why the blessings didn't come to me when they were. I was trying to be braggadocious. I went into it with a different mindset. Now, or growing into that space, you get a little humble, and you also have friends. You get to know Chris, where it's like, hey, dog, like right now, all I got is enough for a couple hats, but I'll repost the F out of you every time I see you. You know what I'm saying? Like, or, like Roger or D'Amico, like anything that I can do to like, and I don't feel like I'm good at it, but I talk well as hell. Yeah. And I know I can help somebody. I can promote something. I can promote the homies, if anything.
I mean, don't get me wrong. There's definitely moments where I was like, oh man, I really want that hat, or I really want that, whatever.
Jordans look good.
Exactly.
This is fly. I ain't trying to spend $250 for the Jordans, bro. Hit me up.
That's how it started for me with Matt and Adidas. I was just like, I just wanted free shoes, and I was like, well, I have to post about it. And that's why I was like, I looked at your content. I was like, all right, I can take pictures. I'm like, I just got my iPhone and I can throw a sheet on like a wall or whatever and make some like cinematic backdrop or whatever, and pick up some props from the dollar store. I'm like, I can do that. That's all I can do. But I'm like, I can't. I live in Chicago, so I'm like, the golf courses don't look as pristine as you would see in California or any other. Yeah, I'm like, just you're not going to see it. So yeah, I mean, I was in that space of like, oh, I just want free stuff, but I can also post about it. It may not look as polished, but like it does resonate with the audience that I do have.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that you just described on wanting to support your friends and support small brands, let me tell you, it shows in your content. It seems so genuine. You're not selling anyone on a product. You're like, yo, this is a dope product, this divot tool, or like you're just hyping it up because you're hyping it up. Like it's one of the most genuine things that I've seen on the internet when people are talking about a product. So keep it up. That's I love it. I
appreciate that. Yeah, and that's again why I went to the black hole of not wanting to create, because it became a point where I was like, I don't really love this t-shirt, I don't really love this hat or whatever. So it definitely takes a willing person to kind of, if you're okay. So as you probably heard before, but it's like once a job becomes a job instead of a passion, or I should say once a passion becomes a job, it's kind of like difficult to do it. So if you're literally getting paid for it, or someone's sending something to you expecting something back, that's where it kind of gets gray, where it's like, I really enjoy this product. And I'm not going to say like, oh, this is the best thing ever, but I am going to say like, thanks for the hat, take a picture of it or something. It's not, it's a little bit different than,
you don't get a product review, because I truly don't want to offend you, and I also don't rock with what this is.
Yeah, there's been a couple times where people sent messages to me, and legit businesses, and I love what they're doing, but it's just not for me. And I just respond by saying like, look at my page, like realize who I am. I say, first things I say are, the family, Jesus, all this. And it's like, you're sending me something that's definitely not aligning with my vision. Yep. So sorry.
My brand and your brand don't match up, baby.
Exactly.
That goes back to what you were saying though. Like your Instagram is a reflection of who you are, and it's clear like, hey, these are the things that I'm about.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, hats off to you with maintaining that integrity of like, hey, this is who I am. It's not a brand, it's who I am, and who I will continue to be.
You got standards and you stand.
I want to exactly. I want to go back to you had mentioned your kids. How do you navigate the evolving relationships with your children as they grow and change, and what are some of the unique challenges and joys that come with each stage? Because obviously you did mention an age gap there.
Yeah, so my son is 16, my daughter is 14, my other daughter is 8, and my youngest is 1.5. So that's the gap.
Damn,
quite a spread.
Yep.
With my son, it's interesting because he looks like me, but he's a lot different than me. Like he literally looks like a spitting image of me, but the way he does things and the attitude he has is a lot different than me. I grew up again in a single mom home where I had to learn everything on my own. I had to basically motivate myself. I had to do, a lot of things that he's basically been handed, and I keep trying to help him see what I see, or how I saw what I saw. And all he wants to do is sit at home and play Legos. And like I said, he's 16. So I told him, like, if you want to get a car, license, whatever, you need to get a job. And so that's been the struggle, has been like, okay, how do I help motivate him to get his butt out there and get a job? So I'm doing as much as I can without doing it for him. And I think that was actually a detriment, because back when he was super young, like we did a lot of, because he was our first, we did a lot of things for him. And I kept telling my wife, I'm like, we've got to stop, because he's just going to get to the point where like, he's not going to do anything because you're going to do it for him. And even when he was like, like 2 and 3 years old, like he struggled with doing things on his own because mom was right there to help him. And it's not a bad thing, but it's just like, you gotta understand like where to push and where to let them kind of run. And my brother was a lot different than I am, and my mom coddled him for a long time. He actually got in trouble with the law a few times because of my mom just kind of letting him do whatever he wanted to do. And again, me being the person who like, I wasn't the goody person, but I was definitely the person who was like, I see what's going on here, and I know that that's a bad thing. So I looked, that's the way I think and I see the world, is like, I know everything that's happening around me,
Yeah.
and I know where to go and where not to go, what to stay away from and what to, run towards. And I think my brother just never had that because my mom was so like cautious and allowed him to kind of do whatever. And when he got in trouble, she was right there to help him and support him. So we're trying to find a balance with my son where it's like, he's not getting in trouble, so to speak, but he's at the point where it's like you got to start making decisions for yourself, buddy. Like you got to
sure.
start, I can't keep telling you every single day to do this or that or whatever. And then contrast that with my daughter who's 14, like she literally wants to do everything all the time. And so I have to like rein her in and go, whoa, 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 whoa. just chill for a minute, chill for a bit. And so she actually had a job for a little while, kind of helping in a house, just as the mom was like doing something online. She was watching her 3 kids downstairs. So it was like kind of a first, let's see how this goes kind of thing. And she's, she does really well with that. And then she literally broke her arm like a month ago, rollerblading while FaceTiming, which is exactly, I mean, that's who she is. So
that's
if
me,
you can
though,
see
too.
the difference between my son and my daughter, like that's exactly it. Like playing Legos at home,
extrovert,
going rollerblading
outside.
on FaceTime. Exactly.
She was outside getting it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we've had that conversation about, just take your time, be a kid. Like you don't have to run and do all these things and learn how to do all that stuff. So it's been a struggle between the two of them. And then the 8-year-old, she's like grown up, gosh, way faster than the other two because she just sees everybody else and just wants to be them. So
Let's catch up.
that was another thing too. Was really hard. Was even though the two were close in age at the beginning, one still wanted to do things that the other one couldn't. And now with the 8-year-old, it's like it's even worse because there's such an age gap where she's like, well, why can't I go do this thing that they're all doing, or why can't I stay up later, or why can't I, it's like trying to explain to her, at that point, it's just harder to do it. And she's my daughter. She's my, my little one. And so she's actually growing up really tall, but she's like, the one I want to like hang on to the most at this point.
Yeah, you don't want her to grow up. No, but it's like when I don't know. I think my daughter kind of has that right now. It's like she's the only kid. She is 7. She sees us put her to bed, or she knows that we put her to bed, and then we come hang out here in the living room, or she knows that like she is the only child. So it's like a lot of moments where she's like I really want to hold her back and make sure that she knows like I just want you to be a kid, like just enjoy being a kid. But she's around mom, and like she was a pandemic baby during school, so the first year of her school was like all at the crib. So she's legit like a mama's girl, but she mannerizes herself off of these like TV shows or like comic books that she reads. So she's like a semi-teenager. She's preteen. She's 7. So I get exactly what you're talking about. Where you kind of like you got to rein them back. Like you are. Like, there's no need for you to want to be grown right now. She's like, when I get older, I'm like, nigga, you got to pay taxes when you become an adult.
Yeah, bills.
Do you know what a job is? You don't like reading books right now. Nigga, somebody's going to tell you to come to work tomorrow, and you better be there or you don't got candy money. Like, what are you talking about? That's her. She has an illogical mind as a 7-year-old. It's very irrational. Like, they think like everything is supposed to go. So I get the 8-year-old part. I feel that.
Man. She shares a room with her 14-year-old sister, so it makes it a lot harder.
Sheesh.
Man, I mean, the other thing too is I don't know what your areas are like, but we live in a affluent area, I should say. I'm definitely not affluent myself, but somehow we survive. But she has friends. The 14-year-old girl, she has friends who have everything, literally everything. Like her parents will just give them money to like go get shoes at the mall or something, and it's like we don't have that. we would never. I mean, even if I had the money, I would never do that. And that's the way they live. Is like I don't know if they're trying to make up for the time they don't get to hang out with their kids, which used to be the case when I was younger. But now I think it's just like they want to win their kids over. Versus like
they need to be their kids' friends,
be their parents.
Yeah,
exactly.
These parents are low key trying to be their kids' friends before their kids get of age to like be their friends.
Yep.
And our parents were different. Like we're all mid-30s, young 30s, mid-30s. So we're all from that era where our parents put a belt to our ass, and we mostly got the conversation like, "Hey, I'm not your friend. Like,
Yeah, I'm not one of your little friends.
I ain't one of your little friends. Don't play with
Yep.
me."
That
You know
was
what
a
I'm saying?
line.
Like, so
That was a line.
we've been
Yeah, I
there.
told
So
you I
like
grew up in an Italian family. My grandpa.
you definitely got a
was
belt to you.
my grandpa was the belt guy.
Yeah. Now, so let me ask both of y'all this, because this is something that I had but didn't have. The school would call my mom. My mom was the neighborhood mom in the apartment complex that we lived in, Goodlettsville, or it was called Greens of Rivergate, and then they called it Green Circle. But we went to Goodlettsville Middle, and it was like a mile and a half away. The school or the parents in the neighborhood were so tight with my mom, and they knew that my mom was like one of them, that my mom was the emergency contact for almost every kid in our neighborhood. So like people would run to our classroom, bang on the window like, "Yo, mama here," and like it would scare the living shit out of me, because like you instantly recall 6 hours of your day. Like, what the fuck did I do wrong today? what was I doing? So
what did I do?
So in my head, I'm in science, and I'm over here counting like, because I could see her, I could feel her at the window. I don't even see her. I feel her at the window. I'm like, and then she just opens the door. She's like, "This is science, boy, and I'm not here for you." And then she walks away, and your heart just like beats normal again. Did any of your parents ever have that like effect where the school called them, or like even threatened to call your parents, and it shut shit down for you?
Not really for me. To be
man.
honest, I don't remember much of my school. Like
I just feel like I
always
just
try to
outed my
remember
mom
back.
as an abusive parent. My fault.
It's possible. No, no. I grew up, like I said, in the '80s, late '80s, early '90s. It was a lot different back then. We're like walked to school, drove the bus, like rode on the bus, and weren't really like that kind of culture. It was like, we're gonna call your parents. It was more like, you got detention, or you're gonna sit here and deal with your stuff. So it's a lot different in that way. But I don't even remember my mom ever having to come. I was actually an A student for most of my school years until I got to college or high school, and then I realized like I don't care. So I got straight C's from them.
Nice.
Graduated with a 3.0, I think it was.
Nice. Yeah, I never. Yeah, no one ever, like, my teachers never said, "I'm calling your dad," or called my dad to come to the school. The worst was they would wait until I was already at home, and then they would call. So like there was no warning.
That's
like,
true,
"Hey,
yeah.
I just got a phone." I was like, "I just got a phone call from your teacher. Explain this." And there is no preparation of like trying to get the story straight in my head. I do remember that happening a lot in like grade school, not so much in high school. Yeah, that really wasn't a thing. My brother probably has different stories for him.
That's true too.
That's not. Yeah, it's not necessarily for me. But yeah, that was. Yeah, I never had to really worry too much about that. You'd mentioned your son. I noticed that you said, or I noticed in your Instagram, Star Wars. You're really happy that your kids liked Star Wars. Tell us. I mean, not a big fan of Star Wars. I saw the appeal. I admittedly watched all of the original Star Wars after watching. I was big in Marvel, so watching all the Avenger movies. So I was like watching all of these old original Star Wars, and I'm like, all right, this doesn't seem realistic. But then when I think about the time, I was like, when it came out, I'm like, oh, this is probably like the shit.
This man was trying to compare Endgame to
exactly.
Not Endgame, but like, yes,
it's definitely a nostalgic thing for sure. Growing up in the '80s, it was like, I think it was right after everything kind of went through theaters was actually when I first saw them. Like I don't think I was old enough to watch them in theaters. If I was super young. But my whole family was in Star Wars. My cousins, and my cousin read the books, which he's a total nerd, but shout out to my cousin. He won't watch this. Maybe he will.
We
but
like
yeah,
to be called geeks, not nerds.
He kind of like, I mean, I kind of looked at him as like the kid I wanted to be because he was older. In some ways, like he, collected baseball cards. So I did that for a while. Like he liked Star Wars, so I watched them, and I think that was the key. Was like the cool part about it was that it was something new and crazy and different. And if you watch some of the documentaries, it even talked about how cutting edge it was, but also just how out of the box it was. Like no one at the time was really, doing star like a space like out there kind of
Yeah.
funny comedy, not comedy, but a funny like action
Adventurous
movie.
movie. Yeah, it was an
Exactly.
adventurous action movie for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean Han Solo was just the man. So
So I, being the like hella resident geek growing up, I still right now I could reach. I mean, you see it. I have comics. Like I read these.
nice.
Um, so so being that guy, like I enjoyed Star Wars. Once I got like around like 10 or 11, I kind of watched them when they popped up on TV.
Mm,
And then a bit more again, like as I started watching Marvel more and things like that. But I think I enjoyed Sir Lucas because he created the exact like hero's journey that
mm,
Stan Lee did for all the Marvel superheroes. That
mm-hmm.
hero's journey is literally littered through Star Wars lore, and
Oh
I
yeah.
think I appreciated that when I watched the shows more, and I resonated with that more.
Yeah.
Who would be your like? Okay, two-part question: Are you Sith or are you the Republic? And then who would you want to be your like? Or sorry, what saber would you pick? What colored lightsaber would you have?
Definitely Republic. And
Cool.
like I said earlier, Han's my guy, so he doesn't have a saber, but probably blue or green.
Cool. Nice. Nice. I mean, I would have to say Samuel Jackson would be my mentor.
Yeah,
So
the purple.
I would have to have the purple saber,
Yeah.
and purple's my favorite color. So we would just have to let that thing
sure.
ride. So I want to bring it. I want to talk to you about like making room for your passions and kind of like introducing your children to your passions. You touched on them when like bringing out the guitar or praying and things like that. When it comes to photography, do your children have an interest in that? And how do you make time for your hobbies outside of fatherhood? And how do you maintain those? Like how do you maintain being Patrick so you can be the greatest dad and the greatest
Mm.
husband?
Yeah, the funny thing is, you guys have looked all over my content, right? Well, most of that was shot either by my daughter, my 14-year-old daughter, or my son helps out a little bit.
Nice.
Literally, like she would go on the golf course with me for a while. This was before like she kind of really, like I said, like a year ago when she really didn't care too much about her friends. Now I have to like force her to help me out with some things, but she's really the creative one. She's the artist. She has the eye and also the talent for it. My son is, like I said, plays Legos a lot, so he's more of the technical one. So he might be someone to tap into for like editing in the future. But I actually talked to my wife about how I'd love to, as a family, create like a sort of, I don't know if I'd call it an agency, but basically like a media house where, kind of someday all of us are kind of working together in some way to create content. But
Hey,
when
stays in the family, man. You got that Italian
yeah,
mindset. Keep it all in the
yeah,
family.
and I think the way to make room for that is, I do sort of try to keep like the 9 to 5 kind of hours where after 5 I'm usually done with the day, and then if I have to I'll pick it up later in the night. But I think something I just saw recently just kind of reminded me of like how if you have things set up and planned beforehand, like it's easier to jump into something. So again, saying no and yes to something is huge when you're talking about planning, because if I was planning on shooting something and no one's around, then it's easier for me to do it rather than like, oh, I've got to do this thing because it's Saturday and it needs to be done by Monday. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think like that part of it is realizing that if I can't involve them in some way, whether it's like taking photos or something that day to make it fun for them, then I actually have to get it done before it's time to hang out with him. So I have this thing on my calendar, which I admittedly I ignore a lot of times, which at the end of the day, I just put from 5:30 to 7:30, which usually is their bedtime, 7 or 8:30. I just put family time, and it's just constant reminder of every day. Again, sometimes I just ignore it, but there and I see it. So I know like, okay, at the end of the day, 5:30, I'm done doing any work, any phone calls or anything like that. So I think that's the way to do it. Is just like constantly remind yourself of the important things in your life and make sure you schedule those things and schedule the things that you have to get done.
Yeah.
Planning is everything, man. I as a photographer, as a musician and as a worship leader, that's the one thing I would say all the time to people is like, look, when you're creating a worship set, you have 5 to 7, songs. What you do with that, you start with those 5 to 7 songs, but you might change them right throughout the day or throughout the set, and that we call it the flow. And you think about that with your life, right? So if you've got 3 things that you need to do or 5 things you need to do, you could start like, I have this plan to do these 5 things, but this thing might take time, or is that thumbs again? It might take time away from the things I got to do, but at least it points, I have the plan set in motion.
Yeah.
And so not having a plan is the worst, right? Because you have no idea what you're going to do that day. You wake up, you're like, okay, well, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to figure it out. Well, if you wake up the next day and say, okay, I've got 3 things I need to do today, and hopefully 5, then at least you have a start. And I think that helps with your prioritization, but also keeping your boundaries in your family.
For sure. That definitely helps out a lot. Structure is one thing that D'Amico kind of has helped me with when it comes to this podcast. Shout out to him and Kate.
Yo, for real. Planning is no joke. That was the biggest thing when Kate and I started dating.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing she said is respect my time.
Ooh.
Like punctuality was a thing. And before, it wasn't that I was like habitually late, but like I was like, oh, it's like
it's on BPT.
I'm only 5 minutes late, or like whatever. Like, but it was like, no, like respect my time. That has rubbed off on me quite a bit. Where I'm like, I know, like my time is valuable. I could be with my wife. I could be with my daughter. I could just whatever it is. There are other things I could be doing. Like
anything but this,
Patrick. I've got things on my list that need to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Respect that. So that's huge. I think that's probably the biggest thing that being a father has taught me is like, you got to have that time planned out. Like, yeah, having a 1-year-old will throw that timeline through the window, but like still stuff has to get done.
Yeah. No such thing as a game plan when you got like a 1-year-old. No such thing as a schedule. You just try to be as structured as possible.
I work at home too, so I've kind of gotten to the point where like I'm okay with him just walking in and interrupting my life.
Yeah, at this point, like thank you.
But
I needed the break.
It's only because I have a schedule and I have a plan, right? Or not a schedule, but I have a plan, and I know that things are going well today, so I'm not going to let that interruption bother me for the rest of the day. But I will say, the hardest thing for me to do is to start something and not finish it. So what I mean by that is if I don't have enough time, so if I'm like, I just got to get this done really quick, and it takes more than a few hours to do it, it's hard for me to like try and really rush through something to get something done so that I can move on to the next thing. Yeah. And what happens a lot of times for me is like I'll have to be somewhere on the other side of town. It takes 15-20 minutes, but that interruption through my day, it like makes it hard for me to start at the end. So if I end up starting work at like, let's say 2:00, I have to be done by 5, right? So it just makes everything more and more frustrating. Yeah. So
when you have to condense things and get 9 things done in a 2-thing time frame, you get sloppy, you get off track, your heart starts to race, your hands starts to get sweaty, mom's spaghetti somehow, I don't know. Those things just happen. I want to give you another, because he hasn't told you this, and we usually give people 2 top 5s. And I've been sitting here racking, and I was doing it last week after our episode. I was like, all right, I'm on to Patrick. Like, how can we, like, what is a top 5? Can we do like top 5 brands you've worked with, top 5 places you've gone golfing, or top 5? What is your top 5 snacks to take to the golf course after the coffee. So you posted earlier for the people who are watching, Patrick's favorite or his go-to. If you ever see Patrick in public, get him a cappuccino. He loves it.
Yep.
But make sure that the barista has good handwork, because he has a new series where he's rating that. So I wanted to kind of get, also, dude, fucking sick. That was a dope ass little intro that you did today. I was like, what? The way he flick it out like that means something? I just thought it was trying to be cute. Whatever. But what are your top 5 like coffee ands?
Yeah. So I actually just did an unboxing video of Penfold. Shout out to Penfold. And the one thing I say is I'm a snacker. Like, I love having snacks on the golf course. If you've ever played with me, you know I'm snacking.
There we go.
A Snickers bar is pretty much top of the list. Nutri-Grain bar, the green thing, you know, that's usually there.
Green apple, yes.
The green apple with that.
Is that the green Nutri-Grain bar?
No, I'm just talking about the green honey oat one.
Oh,
Nature Valley.
Nature Valley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For there
sure.
you go.
Yeah.
They don't sponsor me, so.
We don't know who you are yet.
Top 5, man, that's hard.
Yeah, sorry.
That's definitely my top 2. Let's see. Fruit snacks are up there. Gotta have some fruit snacks.
Okay.
Skittles are also, it's one of those things where like it just kind of lasts throughout the round, you know.
It does.
Like if you don't have a number 33 pick, then you've got a Skittle in your mouth.
There you go.
Nice.
And then probably last is not a food, but it's a Coca-Cola, because you know those things are like $5 on the golf course. So you got to pack one.
Yeah, you got to pack that for sure. Why is that? It's like movie theaters and golf courses just hike the prices up of random things.
Idea. No idea, man.
That's a gut punch. So, from Ohio, Cincinnati born, big Italian family, moved out to the West Coast. Did you meet your wife in the West Coast, or did you guys meet in Ohio?
Yeah. I met her my first week at college, at Simpson University in college. Well, back then it was Simpson College. That's why I keep saying it.
Okay.
But we became friends. We didn't even know, like, we wanted to be together. The craziest story. She was dating someone else. I was actually interested in someone else too. So we became friends. We had like a really tight group of friends, except the person she was dating wasn't friends of ours, which is kind of weird. But anyway, so the girls that she was friends with and her were all friends with me and a couple of my buddies. And over time, what happened was we started hanging out more and more. And we started to realize, like, you know, we're actually becoming really good friends. And so there was a trip we planned to San Diego. And me being from Ohio, I've never been to San Diego. So I actually had the car, and she needed the way to get to where we were going. And so we planned like this whole trip with a bunch of people, and last minute everybody canceled. And it was just her and I. So we're sitting in the library of the college and talking to each other and saying, you know, I think we can still do this as long as we don't start to like each other. And in my heart, I'm like, we could do it.
Yeah, I'm definitely not gonna like you.
So fast forward to, we get down to San Diego, and if you've ever been there to Del Mar, like there's this overlook over the ocean, and we're sitting there on a bench, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, you know, back when I said, like, earlier in the podcast, where it's like, I just got to be me, right? Doesn't matter what's going to happen. So I came to the point where I was like, look, I could either sit with this feeling in my gut like the whole week and just kind of like hang on to it, saying like, you know what, we could just be whatever. Or I could just get it over with and like say what I feel and see what happens, kind of thing. So I said, you know, I think I'm starting to like you. And she responded by saying, oh, they're just feelings. You'll get over them. And
she was the Mac with it. That was some pimp talk, brother. I'm telling you. Oh, man. Those are just feelings. You'll get over it.
Exactly. And so what happened was, you know, my old self probably would have been like, well, what can I do to change? Blah, 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 that kind of thing. Well, I decided, like, whatever she said, I was just going to be like, I'm just going to accept it. And so I did. I just accepted it and said, you know what? We're going to have a great week. It's going to be awesome. We're still going to be friends. Like, maybe God will change your mind. This is what I came to. But I wasn't gonna like force it. I was just gonna be like, we're just gonna be good friends, and that's great. So fast forward to a couple months later when we actually started getting closer and started realizing like, okay, there's more here than we thought. And we actually had the conversation of like, okay, they call it DTR, define the relationship. So what's going on here? So we either had to be, either stop dating or start dating, right? And
Yeah,
this
because you
being
were already
college,
dating without dating.
exactly. And this being college and a Christian college, which they always say ring by spring, we were like, let's not date until after the semester's over because we don't want to be that couple, right? So we started dating. It was like the end of April, which was right when school ended, and we got engaged in June.
So it ended up
Nice.
happening the right way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You just pushed it back. Ring by
Yep.
summer. Sprung by summer. There we go. Sprung by summer.
Yeah.
Sprung by summer.
Yeah. And then it's a long
Spring
story,
has
but we
sprung.
ended up getting married in December. So that'll be for another podcast. We could talk about that
Oh, dog.
because that was pretty quick.
So, hold on. You trying
But
to
we've
do a
been
part
together
two,
for
you
almost
said?
20 years now. So
What?
Congratulations.
First of all, bro, you
That's
said earlier in
beautiful.
this podcast that you're 44. Cap. I need to see
Yep.
birth certificates and all that. That's cap. You look so young. You look our age, bro. That's why I said we're all mid-30s. I literally
Right.
said that. Like, we all mid-30s.
I let it go.
He was like, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you, bro. No, that's awesome.
It's gray in
bro.
my beard.
I would.
Tells me
You
I'm-
know what?
It's a good
You know
look.
what I say that for? I say that is just you being a dad. It's
Yep.
because I feel like I got a great lock somewhere in here. I just haven't looked at it completely yet. So you're a traveler? Like, have you lived anywhere outside
somewhat.
of Ohio, California? Because okay, for sure.
Yeah.
Actually, D'Amico, you get there. I'm gonna head to the restroom really quick.
The funny
Yeah.
thing is that I actually grew up in Ohio, never really went anywhere. Our summer vacation was like set in stone. Like we would go every couple of years. And that was it. We went to was it Ocean Isle, North Carolina, South Carolina border.
Nice.
And then after, man, it's again a long story, but basically, I just one day came to realize like I don't want to be in Ohio. Everybody kind of, I don't know if this is the Midwest mentality or just the Ohio Cincinnati mentality, but basically I saw everybody kind of like coming home, doing the exact same thing, going to the same job, hanging out with the same people, and I was like, this is just not for me. Like I need to get out of here. And again, long story short is I found an opportunity to get out to California and took it. Literally packed up my car, my Camry, Toyota Camry, and it was literally packed to the gills. Drove all the way out to California. I didn't know anybody, and just had to reinvent myself. To be honest, I was like, back home I was really introverted, didn't really hang out with anybody, didn't really know anybody, just my close friends. But I have to step out and start being more extroverted and like really get to know people. Well, I said this wrong, but basically I have to be more outer driven. So I ended up just like literally talking to everybody. Hey, where are you from? How are you doing? Like, what got you here? That kind of stuff. And that's how I met my wife. So now fast forward to the conversation that she and I had, which was she grew up as a missionary. So she traveled all over the place. And me being from Ohio didn't really go anywhere. And so that was kind of the thing that I wanted to really explore with her was like, what does that look like to go and do something else? And then when my mom passed away, it kind of opened up an opportunity for us to live in Australia for a year. So because of the worship school I went to, we went to Sydney, Australia for a year with 2 kids. So that was pretty crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
What? You went to Sydney with 2 kids?
Yeah, it was
How
a lot.
old were they?
They were so my daughter was just 1, just turned 1, and then my son was 3. So we went that time because, well, 1, because it was an opportunity, but 2, because we didn't have to pay for her plane ticket, which was very helpful.
Yeah.
But I mean that story is amazing. Like just the great things that God did with family. We still have friends. I mean, the friends we still have that are like family out, all over the country. and all over the world. Actually, there's a few in Germany and other places. But really, what God did in that moment was tell me like um, I could do anything and go anywhere. And so we came back to California, but I ultimately ended up getting a job in Texas. And so I lived in Dallas, Texas for a year or two, which I don't want to say things bad about Texas, but it wasn't for me. Let's just say that.
Yeah, Texas isn't for a lot of people.
Dallas is not for me. That's
So we kind of
podcast.
Right. We kind of first of all, you have said twice now that we could do that another podcast. You can either invite us on yours, or we can do a part 2 with you, brother. It is all gravy. I would love to keep talking.
We welcome it.
But we kind of went like we talked about. We stalked your page, and you have like a tentative list of states. Is that a bad phrase? Stalk? We observed your page. We observed your page. We didn't stalk.
All good.
Per se.
All good.
We observed.
Do whatever you want to it. It's out there.
Investigative journalism.
Yeah,
we were doing research.
Hey, Western Michigan, that degree that y'all didn't give me, it's working. It's working. So you got here, it says here's a tentative list of states. I don't know if that's states that you've lived in, that you've been to, or that you want to go to.
Yeah, I think that was part of a cross-country road trip.
Okay.
So California, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, Canada, Wyoming, South Dakota, Iowa, Minnesota, Illinois, Ohio, New York, Maryland, I think that's MD, Washington, D.C., Virginia, Tennessee, Georgia, Florida, Louisiana, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Colorado, Utah, Arizona, Hawaii. That wasn't 15. Have you touched all 50 states yet?
No.
Damn.
Yeah, we so this is the thing, and
like you almost got North America right there, my dog. Like that's crazy.
Well, we took a trip. So what was that? 2015. So 2015, we sat down. I literally came home. I was freelancing at the time, just kind of like working and finding work or whatever. We were living in Santa Ana. I literally came home to my wife and I was like, look, you could say no, but I think, what if we just put everything in storage and just visited my family in Ohio? And she was like, yes, let's do that. And I was like, really? So we were homeschooling kids at the time. We had our Kia Soul, and it just made sense for me for whatever reason to go, like, let's just do this. So as I started thinking about it, I'm like, you know what? We haven't seen our friends in like all these places. Like I said, I have friends all over the country for, via college or Sydney, Australia, or Texas or wherever. Like we met people all over the place. And at the time there was something called Sociality, which isn't huge right now, but it used to be back then, where a lot of believers that were creators kind of like had this sort of network built together. So I was able to use that network to build a cross-country road trip across, a road trip across the country. And so that's most of that time is like driving through and staying in most of those states, which was pretty insane. And again, another podcast. We learned a lot. We met a lot of people, and we definitely made a lot of mistakes, but at the same time learned a lot from those mistakes. So that was cool. Went to Canada for the first time, which was kind of crazy, being that I've been so close to it from living in Ohio.
Yeah.
That was the first time I've been in Canada. I've never been to Mexico, which is funny because I've been to the border on accident, but never been in Mexico.
By accident? How? You just like accidentally went to Baja?
Well, I was living in San Diego, and on my way home from the water park, because I was working with a youth, a junior high youth down there. I was driving south on the wrong highway, and I look up and I see the Mexican border. I'm like, oh crap, I got to turn around. So that was.
This is not me. This is not what I want.
Closest Mexico as I've been.
Yeah, my wife and I are planning on going there. My wife is from Mexico. Her family and stuff is. So we're planning on going out that way next year.
Nice.
So hopefully the podcast is doing good enough to where I don't have to be a full-time barber and I can take some time off and go to Mexico.
Nice.
That's the
So most of those states have been because of that road trip. The reason I haven't seen all 50 is because we didn't go to the northeast, which I would love to go out there someday. And then parts of the middle of like Arkansas and those areas we didn't touch. So,
Yeah, I mean,
or I'm
but
sorry,
understandably
Oklahoma.
so. Okay, so
Yeah.
yeah, you didn't like Texas. I don't think you would like the Bible Belt line down there past Tennessee.
Well,
I think
we were planning on it. We went to Texas, and again, learning about this trip was like it all kind of fell apart on the second half. The first half was like we kind of made it through, and it wasn't too bad. But the second half was just like it was just so long because so our plan was to go for a month, to drive to Ohio, and then live in Ohio for a month with my family, and then the second half go home. Well, all the stops that we made on the second half of the trip, kind of like the timing was weird. Like someone was like, "Oh, I forgot you were coming." Like you just things like that. So when we got to Texas and we just kind of worked it out at the last minute, it was like, I think we just need to go home. Like we were planning to go to Oklahoma. I had friends up there in Colorado, and we just like, yeah, we just got to go home.
yeah, for sure.
But and also at the
it's
same
a lot.
time, the cool thing is that I got a job offer while I was in Ohio to come back to California. So that kind of gave me more reason to come back quickly.
Nice. So,
But
you said
also,
you work
I don't
in
know
the
if you guys
crib
are.
right now.
Well, I don't know
what
if
were
you
you saying?
guys are. I was gonna say I don't know if you guys are like going through this with your families right now, but part of the reason we drove around on that trip too was to kind of see where we wanted to be, and this is a good life lesson for any family or any fathers are out there. But like, you never really know what you need until you don't have it, and I think that was what happened with us on a trip. When we came back, we're like, we love California. I know it's a really bad place to live right now for some people, financially and politically or whatever, but like this is our home. This is where we want to be. And not being here for 3 months on the road, like this is where we want to be forever. So we're gonna fight to be here.
Yeah, I mean, I've lived
Love that.
I've lived in Michigan, Illinois, Nashville,
Mm,
Missouri, and North Carolina, and
wow.
yeah, Oregon is it for me. I don't. I mean, maybe
Yeah, that's
I don't think I could do anything. I don't want to go back to the Midwest. It's too
Mm.
angry. A lot of closed-minded.
as I currently live in the
Yeah,
Midwest.
you live in the city that like you lived in the city that shaped me. Like you know Chicago. Like we were raised in a city of like very ugly introductions, and like you're OG by the time you're 23 or 21 at some cases. And like I said earlier, like I lost a lot of the homies to dumb shit before we even got a chance to see how we were going to be great niggas, like, or great people. Excuse me for talking negative like that, though. Like, but it's like straight up, like it's been insane to see the growth of myself and how I, like you said, kind of like how I was able to reinvent myself when I moved out here to Oregon, because I didn't know what I didn't know, and the one person that I had was me. I didn't have any family out here, so I needed to figure out who I was. So I came out here and became, I think, more of an adult. And I think this is when I leaned on my faith more. Like I was saying, like I leaned on my faith more once I moved to Oregon than anything else. Because that's the only other person I had was him. Only other person.
That's good. Yeah,
I mean, I
had a great. I was gonna say I had a great experience in Chicago. Like on our road trip, it's another one of those places that fell apart last minute. We're driving there in my Kia Soul with my family. And my friend who was supposed to meet with us was like, actually, I've got a couple that wants to host you guys. And we were like stoked because obviously at this point we had no idea. Our backup was always like stay in a motel or a hotel, but like we don't know Chicago, like anywhere, where to go. So we pull up to this couple's house, and it was a young couple, and they literally had like a not a barbecue, a fire pit in the back, and like Chicago style pizza like ready for us. And like s'mores, and it was like they had a spare bedroom. I mean, it was like the best the best that could have been in that spot. Yeah, it was really
That's
cool.
Chicago generosity right there. That's the best side of Chicago. That's the best side of the go. I'm trying to like lure D'Amico to the Pacific Northwest just for a visit, just so he can get the feel.
It's not that hard. It's not that hard.
I was like, like I told you, like the house is here for you. So let's go.
I got family in California. They first started out in Long Beach, and then they're living in Fresno now. I love California. I've
Nice.
told my wife that I was like, if we could live anywhere, I think the ideal place for me would be Long Beach. I just love the vibe there.
Yeah, Long Beach is pretty
but
cool.
you had mentioned like realizing that California was your home by being away from California, and recommending that people do that. That's kind of what happened to me and why I decided to come and stay back in Chicago. Oddly enough, I was living in Ohio, Columbus, Ohio specifically, for a job, and I was living there for I lived there for a year, and I had just gotten engaged with my wife, and everyone's like, "Oh, you can do anything for a year." And she was a teacher; she's in the union, so like she had to stay here.
Yep.
And she tried to find a job, and I tried to convince them, like, "Oh, maybe we can just live in Ohio. Like, cost of living, like we can afford a nice house. Like, it's a lot cheaper than Chicago." And then she asked me a very real question, and she was like, "D'Amico, can you imagine raising a family in Ohio?" And I was like, no, because every time I've thought about raising a family, I imagined raising my family in Chicago and taking my kids, like, oh, this is where I grew up. This is the high school I went to, because I went to high school in like the Loop. So I was like seeing all the architecture. I was like, I just love the city. And you kind of mentioned it, Patrick, about like wanting to leave Ohio because it seemed like everyone there just stayed there and went to the same high school that their parents went to, and all that. Luckily, I moved to a different part of the city, and I'm the furthest away. I'm never going back to the neighborhood I grew up in. It was a very nice neighborhood, very affluent neighborhood.
Yeah.
I'm never going back to
Where
that neighborhood.
did you grow up? I don't think I've ever asked you that. Oh my God.
Yeah. I grew up in an Irish Catholic neighborhood, ran like a bunch of cops and firefighters. Great neighborhood, but I just knew like it was that type of neighborhood where if you grew up there,
We lost Blair.
you went to U of I, you went to Iowa, you went to whatever,
You
DePaul,
were
and
not
then you went
in
back.
the city. Yeah, you went to DePaul and came back. DePaul was the furthest south you went, and then you came right back.
Yeah.
Chicago
so,
State, if you spicy, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but like right now, I'm in Hyde Park, and I'm like Hyde Park
South
it speaks to me.
There's
a vibe here.
That's still close to the south side, so you got a little bit of that culture, but it's not too south side to where you got to keep a gun on you at all times. So it's great.
I don't know. It's south enough because there is that like on a off topic, but very like my wife got mugged like by Thanksgiving, like on the way from her school to our apartment. Like it's just a 7-minute walk, just 2 blocks.
Serious,
That's crazy.
And so there is that, and it's scary, and those are the moments where I'm like, do we leave the city? And I'm like, I could never live in suburban life. That's just never going to be a thing that we would do. We've always talked about if we moved away from the city, it would be into a different city like Colorado or just moving out west.
That's what I told my wife last night. I was like, I don't know. Like the only places that I would live is Arizona because I want to play golf all the time. Denver, LA, but I don't want to ever live in LA because I hate traffic. Like I do not like traffic, so LA's out the question. So it's Arizona, Denver, or here. Like there's nowhere else. Or we're living somewhere exotic. Or we're living somewhere where I can literally, like, I got bad joints, y'all. Like I blew both my knees out. I pop when I walk. I need warmth. It legit snowed this morning when I was at school in Oregon. I don't like that.
Yeah, I lived in downtown LA for a year. Like we went through a season where we like lived in certain places for a year, but DTA was like, it was fun because we lived in a loft downtown with our 2 kids. And I walked everywhere. I met so many people, so many colorful people.
Yes.
But I definitely
walked a lot. I didn't have a car though, so I met a lot of people that way.
Yeah, I mean, but after that DTLA year, it was like, I mean, literally felt like we were on vacation because like there was a hot tub on the top of the roof and like a pool up there. It's a place to hit golf balls. I mean, it was like, where are we? What's going on right now? It's crazy.
Where the fuck is
but at the
this?
same time, I'm in the hot tub, and then like a block down the road, you see somebody getting assaulted because that's where all the homeless people live. So it's kind of like it was a weird year. But at the end of it all, we realized like we wanted to be in LA, but we wanted to be in Orange County because we kept visiting Orange County, and we're like, there's a lot more space down here, there's a lot more families and stuff like that. So that's how I kind of came back to this realization.
Oh, that's it. Home is where the heart is.
Amen.
Exactly. So I want to give you a chance, Patrick, to give us some insight on who do you think we should have on the podcast for some much needed father time. Anyone that you would recommend?
Who you got?
Man, that's hard.
Who
So
do
I
we
know a
need to
lot
hit up?
of great people. I think Hafer's like probably top of my list. I had a good conversation with him recently where he just kind of enlightened me to like, I had no idea he thought that much of, you know, his family and kids because you don't ever see it, you know, too much. And then as I started watching his posts and stuff, I started realizing like his involvement with his kids is huge. Him and then Kyle Walton is another one that comes to mind. I think I forget where he's at now, but you know, he does the Gimme Golf Club.
Yeah, I think he's St. Louis.
Yeah, that's it. But he's good friends with. You had Keith on here, right?
Yeah, we had
Keith.
Keith.
We had Keith. Yeah, Keith's
I think he's good friends with him, so there's the connection there. And then Jeff, what's his last name? Marsh. Jeff Marsh is another guy that great dude. I mean, his story is probably like 3 hours long. Podcast would be like huge, but he's a great guy.
No.
What's one piece of advice you would give to a father that's right in that space of like, hey, here's a baby?
That's not what you just said, what you just said.
Yeah, I mean, you can listen to all the advice, all the people, all the friends, and they're all great, you know, great offering advice, and they mean the best. But the reality is, like, you have to just sit with that kid and realize, like, you know, this is your responsibility to raise this kid. And again, knowing that you have support, hopefully you have support. If you don't have support, reach out to, you know, this group and anybody else that, you know, can help you. But that's the thing I would say is, like, at the end of the day, it's all about what you want and how you want to do what you do, and not listening to everybody else that thinks they know what they want or what they want to do. Yeah, that's what I would say. It's like, you be you. Back to what I said earlier. You be you.
All right, y'all. Well, with that being said, man, we appreciate you guys for tuning in. You could have been anywhere in the world decided to watch the podcast. Again, thanks to Patrick and his family for allowing him to have the time to sit down and give you guys gems, explain a little bit about his past and where he is right now currently. I'm your play partner, host of Motion Country Cousin Blair, aka Sir Winnie. That's my brother over there, D'Amico. Thank you guys. If you like what you see, hit the like button, share, subscribe, and leave a comment on what it is that you would take either to the golf course or what is your top snack. Let us know. All right, be cordial. Love you guys. Peace.